call your operator.
Have no fear, fellow citizens. The Mediator is here.
Good morning and welcome to this week's edition of The Mediator with me, your host, Brian West, here to give you the top 8 headlines and developing news stories that made it this week. Now, as usual, give you the top 8 local headlines and developing news stories that made it first, followed by a movie clip, a skit, a trailer, or something that's going on in the community, or maybe some pictures. And then I'll give you the top 8 international headlines and developing news stories that made it, folks. So let's waste no time. Oh yeah, let's get to it. Story number 1. South Fieldhouse is back in the headlines. David Skolnick has a report published December 3rd on how City Council at the time of this report may decide to demolish South Fieldhouse, which has sat dormant for some time. Now the outdoor bleachers may also be torn down in what the article says is preparation for the site to be sold to the Valley Legends Stadium Consortium, and as a part of Valley, which is a part of Valley Christian Schools. I have to get this right. Now, $9 million is what they plan to spend on a 3,000-seat stadium with a turf football field and a track. This was in the report. Now, money is currently being raised by Valley Christian to carry out these plans, such plans. Now, what got the story in is the fact that plans are being made to get the once very active property back up to par for more community use. That's why story number 1 made it this week. Story number 2. What is the motive after shots were fired in Youngstown? The gun bug strikes again, folks, in the city of Youngstown. In a report by Ed Runyon published December 3rd. Now, this is after a Shell gas station on East Midlothian Boulevard popped back into the headlines. Well, the first was the one on Market Street. That was one on East Midlothian. It popped back into the headlines after gunfire erupted in the news, in the headlines. Now, the report says that 8 to 9 shots were fired. No injuries were reported, but the fact that gunshots are being fired at a gas station in a city that is struggling to get over the crime hump is what got the story in. And the fact that there's gas underneath the ground. So shooting fire at gas stations, not a very smart idea. That's why story number 2 made it this week. Story number 3. New Bethel turns their old building into a community center. City leaders gathered in Youngstown at New Bethel for the opening of the Southside Community Center, honoring the legacy of the late Reverend Lonnie L. Simon. Now, if you did not know, New Bethel has been sharing and spreading the gospel for over 100 years. The project is estimated to cost around $320,000, according to the report. That's why story number 3 made it this week. Story number 4. Local businesses remain in the holiday spotlight. A report out of Warren puts more attention on the small business community. The report is all about Small Business Saturday and how it is needed around this time of year when small businesses hope and pray to get whatever crumbs that are left over in all the holiday spending. Now, of the 13-year mark of this, the creation, this was created by American Express in 2010. That's the small business Saturday, and I guess it was also I guess the Small Business Association has something to do with it, and they've established it since 2011. Now, but they've been able to get over $201 billion that has been generated for small businesses on Small Business Saturday, if you did not know. Now, the article is filled with numbers, but made it in to keep the spotlight on small business spending around this time of year, because everybody needs a blessing. That's why story number 4 made it this week. Story number 5. The Ohio Turnpike is back in the headlines. As of January 1st, toll rates for travelers on the Ohio Turnpike are set to increase. Now, there is a report in the Mediator published December 3rd explaining how much rates will rise. Now, if you did not know, the money collected at the tolls are primarily used for the operation and the maintenance of the Ohio Turnpike's infrastructure, which includes road, bridges, or the road, bridge, and other projects as stated in the report. That's why story number 5 made it this week. Big head. Story number 6. $26 million anticipation. $26 million anticipation. $26 million in state funds is the amount mentioned in an article by David Skolnick published December 3rd to create an innovation hub for aerospace and defense. Now, these are funds highly anticipated by the Youngstown Business Incubator to carry out the plans in the former Youngstown Vindicator building. They want to do some things and make it useful. Now, the article is filled with funding goals and potential. Now, what got the story in is the fact that the article mentions $191.7 million over the next 4 years, with the creation of 271 new jobs, with average projected annual salaries at $81,806, as mentioned by Barb Ewing, who is YBI's CEO, the Youngstown Business Incubator. Now, she goes on to explain how 481 indirect jobs are also in the deal. Now, the old building is 130,000 square feet in size. The story is still developing because that's what it says there. She's anticipating a blessing. Story number 6, to make things happen. That's what I was made to the top 2. Story number 7 in the top 2. Local headlines and developing news stories that made this week. Folks, if you do want to show some support here at Method 8 for all the stuff that continues to go on, 17 years of voluntary work. And like I said, you could go to the website. I upload the show on Saturday, or if you could stop at the store, 5648 Market Street. Every little bit counts when you're in a small business environment, especially when it's run. It's a for-profit, but it's run off of its mission statement. So I have to sacrifice a lot. Retired, and this is what I've devoted the rest of my life to do, being a community and a servant, which that's all I really know how to do, is serve. So if you want to show some support, show me some support like most people do, shout out to Preston and some of the other people who stopped by the store to show some love. Story number 7, state support for businesses. $665,000 is just one of the listed amounts in a state program set aside for business expansion. Now, the report out of Warren, published December 3rd in the Vindicator, states that $665,000 will go to a business in Trumbull County. A Columbiana County business will also receive about $198,000. The report goes on to further explain the entire process. The funding is through the Ohio Department of Development's Regional 166 direct loan program. These are low interest loans. Now, the program provides low interest loans to businesses with limited access to adequate capital for private funding sources, as stated in the report. Jobs and economic circulations. What got the story? Story number 8 in the new holiday season 2024, to give you the top 8 so you can be blessed around this time of year, and you can see the results of hard work and dedication to find you the top 8 stories. Story number 8. The Stewart Health collapse is still being felt, folks. This is a big story. Ron Seelig Jr. has a report published December 3rd in what appears to be a total collapse of Stewart Health in the local community, folks. Now, the fact that 163 beds, 19 satellites, and more than 750 employees are all at odds in this report is what got the story in, and it's still trending. Folks, we're headed into a holiday season where a lot of people don't have a lot of money, and there probably will be some people in the unemployment lines pretty soon. So if you did not know, Stewart Health is the largest employer in Mercer County, PA, thus making story number 8 a top big story, folks. Well, folks, there are top 8 local headlines and developing news stories that I made this week. I'll be right back with the top 4, so don't you go anywhere. The Mediator, me, Brian West. I'll be right back.
Ho, ho, ho! Merry Christmas!
Welcome back. Now it's time to get to the top 8 international headlines and developing news stories that I made this week. Folks, this week we're talking about getting gifts. headed into the holiday season, and they got a lot of. I did not realize how there's a learning curve when it comes to technology and the older generation and the new generation, and I that's why when I opened up this business, being a student years ago at ITT Tech for computer engineering, I did not know how useful my knowledge working on electronics would be, and in this new day and age, there's a lot of older people who just don't have a lot of technical skills, and the old school has a real pure vibe, but the new school is really technical. They know a lot about technology and computers. And I learned this. My mother, we bought her. Well, my sisters got her a nice little iPad for Christmas because she likes to play her games, and I notice this a lot when I'm servicing people who are not tech savvy. This is not everybody's gifted at this. They get frustrated. And I mean, some people throw the computer, throw the iPad. I've seen people get upset about this frustration of not being able to grasp the technical experience. And I know I've had to deal with this for a long time because I used to work on I worked on a tech system in the Navy, and I had to keep learning. And technology is not easy. You have to be technical. So in grasping of this holiday, I learned that I'm needed even when I'm not even on the clock, because my mother, she couldn't get this password. She was getting frustrated, defeated inside. She almost stopped believing in Santa Claus. I asked her at the table, I said, Mom, do you know if there's a Santa Claus or not? She was defeated. This iPad had destroyed her entire being of being a mother and knowledge. And I sat there with her and had my Santa Claus hat on, and I cozied up. I said, Mom, it's going to be all right. I'm going to get this iPad working for you. And I did. By the grace of God, I found out that password. Whew! Oh. Whew! Let it out, Brian. Let it out. Let's waste no time, folks. Let's get to it. Story number 1. Holiday spirit technology. Story number 1. Disabled Americans have popped in and out of the headlines. Bloomberg has a report explaining how the U.S. is seeking to end sub-minimum wage for workers with disabilities. Now, the report begins by explaining President Joe Biden's Department of Labor, or who is, I guess, his Department of Labor stands, who is posing to abolish, who I guess is proposing to abolish below minimum wage pay for people with disabilities. That includes a lot of people. Could even be me, which is now in the hands of the Trump administration. I would like to say, please don't leave out the disabled folks. According to the report, this debate goes all the way back. If you go into the report, it goes all the way back to the New Deal, which permits paying particular employees a lower special minimum wage on the grounds of their disabilities and impairments, which impairs their productivity. So there's something in here now, thus leaving the discussion about the Americans with Disabilities Act, which was meant to shield people with disabilities from being deemed too expensive to employ. Wow. Folks, this story has disabled America on alert. That's why I say that technology headed into the holidays. There are disabled people who need closed captioning, hearing aids. Story number 1 is a big deal. Story number 2. Remember the Keystone oil pipeline story. One Fox Business story leaves the fact that it may not be easy to restart the Keystone XL pipeline. The report by Eric Revel homes in on one of Trump's focal points of restarting the Keystone XL pipeline that Biden stopped. Now, the report goes on to explain the complex situation that emerged when Biden shut the program down. Now, if Trump will pick the pieces up from his last administration to make America more energy dependent, is what got the story in. Story number 2, big. Story number 3. What caused the death of a healthcare CEO? Folks, this is interesting. Now, a And ABC News has a report explaining how a United Healthcare CEO was fatally shot outside a Midtown Manhattan hotel ahead of an investor conference on Wednesday. Now, according to the report published, it was published December 4th, sometime this week. Now, the entire incident sounds orchestrated because the shooter arrived at the scene about 5 minutes before the shooting occurred. Now, ironically, the entire incident occurred around open healthcare season. Now, United Healthcare's parent company, United Health Group, is the largest insurer in the world. Folks, the story is still developing. Let's make it as a top story. Story number 3. Big. Story number 4. The Allies and the foreign affairs problem. Foreign affairs could pose a problem for the next administration due to the circumstances in which a lot of American allies are in. Now, South Korea's president Yoon Suk Yeol has suddenly declared martial law, causing a stir this week before the airing of this show. So, before the airing of the show, he was declaring martial law. It's probably settled now, but there's still a lot going on. Now, Israel may have also pushed the pedal of its war plans to the max, which is because they have left Gaza on the brink of starvation. They're already starving, with aid channels breaking down. That means people are trying to get aid in, and these channels are breaking down. This is a big story. Now, Russia and the BRICS alliances are remaining atop headlines, also in the struggle to end the Ukraine problems, the problems that are going on in Ukraine, the war. There's problems that come along with war, and we're seeing it full scale, folks. Now, there is a lot going on across the globe headed into another Trump administration. Now, such stories continue to connect and get people to see the real fact that the world is changing course for the worse right now. And a lot of people are still disconnected from those who are inside of the realist. That means there's a big disconnect that some people just don't really even know what's going on, folks. But some people are alert and trying to inform people as much as possible. That's what's number 4 made it this week. Well, folks, our top 4 international headlines, developing news stories that made this week. I'm right back to top 4. So don't you go anywhere. The media to be Brian West. I'm right back. Welcome back. Now it's time to get to the top 4 international headlines and developing news stories that made this week, folks. Once again, we're headed into another holiday season, and the hardest part I continue to tell people about making the transition from a hardcore Christian. I still believe, I still wish I had a lot of the same feelings, but there's things that happen over time when you realize how people think. And as a business owner, you have to serve a community. You have to live by your business plan. And I'm not gonna lie, it gets hard because there's a lot of spirits, vibes, hidden messages, subliminal messages that go on when you're a business owner. And the way people think, this is what I've always told people, that's been the biggest if I told my story about being a business owner, I would say that's the hardest challenge, because you got to fix your thinking and the way people think at times. And after a while, you realize that you cannot fix that. Some people are just born a way and they believe a certain way. So to grasp the concept of business, you have to hire and you have to fire sometimes. And it's tough because there's a lot of feelings and emotions involved. And around this time of year, businesses are looking for help. And sometimes the help that they get is hard because there's a lot of expenses and sacrifices that come along with running a business. That's why I continue to head into this holiday season. I have to stress this because there's a lot of businesses who are suffering. You have to please the customer. You have to hug the customer. You have to walk the customer through the adventures of doing business. And sometimes it can get frustrating because nobody can possibly know everything. So heading into this holidays, I hope people understand the importance of the businesses around them, the people who sacrifice their time, the mood swings, the bad customers, the fight, the lawsuits. I mean, that's all in a business. And the business of Santa and giving out presents, and people who don't believe in the spirit of Christmas, and some people having their own issues, some people taking it as a religious matter and getting frustrated and bitter inside. the reality is that, folks, we need to feel blessed around this time of year. So I'm going to give you one of my special selections off of my new CD, Hug Your Mama and Your Cousins and Family Around the Holidays, even if it costs you your business. It's called Blessings Around This Time of Season. Blessings come in small packages. So if a customer can't afford an item, give them the most precious gift of all. Give them a hug for free. Woo, folks! Hugs are free this year. Let's waste no time with my Santa Jolly Holly hat going on. Let's waste no time. Let's get to it. Story number 5. Hugs are free. Not too many companies are looking forward to Trump's tariffs. Speaking of free hugs, folks. Courts has a report explaining how Trump's tariffs would spell disaster for GM and Ford. Folks, the article goes on to explain how the rest of the auto industry will also suffer because just about every automobile product is imported from around the world, including Mexico and Canada. The amount of goods to be taxed are about $1.7 trillion worth, according to a 2023 report. The report goes on to explain how any profits at a 10% profit margin would be wiped out by 25% tariffs. This would add about $3,000 to the average cost of vehicles sold in the U.S. Folks, $211 billion worth of motor vehicles and parts entered the United States last year from Canada and Mexico. This is about 52% of the overall $403 billion worth of vehicles and parts that imported in 2023, folks. This is according to the Census Bureau. That's why story number 5 made it this week, because cost big. Story number 6, why the immigration debate is a hot topic now. There are a few things keeping the immigration debate alive: Trump's massive deportation plans, the job market, foreign affairs, and law. Who's breaking it? So many questions are stirring the pot of how this one issue became a hot topic in today's ever-changing world. One article in Yahoo Finance has the issue being a top concern because of how important people from other countries have become to the U.S. labor force. That means that they're entangled in the system. Now, this story has a number of angles. One angle is, how do you fix a bond between over 11 million illegals, and how do you fix a bond between the people who have followed the laws? Now, what got the story in is a key stat between 2008 and 2013, when Obama deported more than 400,000 illegals. But 3 years later, U.S. counties saw more than 2,400 fewer building permits and 2,000 fewer new homes on average. It means that there was a ripple effect. Now, this doesn't account for agriculture, the farming business, and all that other stuff that comes along with agriculture, and the help that they need, cheap labor. Now, whatever Trump's plan is it has already shot the immigration story to the top of a lot of major news stories, folks. This story is still developing. That's story number 6. I was made to the top 2 this week. Big. Story number 7 and the top 2 international headlines and developing news story that made this week for one reason around this holiday season and around the whole year is just to keep you informed. That's all I'm in here for, so you can see the importance of knowing what's going on around you. Story number 7, the shutdown story is hanging on. NBC News has a headline by Sahil Kapur explaining how Congress faces a shutdown dilemma that could mess with Trump's first 100 days. Now, the report goes all in on the rush to avert a government shutdown. This one story, has the pendulum now shifting towards the middle of the pendulum, leaving the right, meaning the right, left, the right, which is the conservative party, all that other stuff, the right, who will have the majority. That means the Republicans will have the majority, and they will decide on which side, what the the pendulum will swing in favor of the people, or will it swing away from the right? Will it go back to the left? Folks, this story has the weight of the world on the Republican Party's shoulder, folks, because they have the majority headed into the new year, folks. This story is still developing. That's story number 7. I was made to the top this week. Big B. Story number 8 and the top international headline and developing news story that I made this week for you to keep you informed. Don't you want it? Don't you like it? Don't you love it? Story number 8. Layoffs and the job market. Fox Business has a jobs report out of ADP. It appears that the private sector added about 146,000 jobs in November, which is below expectations. Folks, economists estimated 150,000 jobs, but there's some good things going on here. Well, first let's get to the bad. Manufacturing, financial services, leisure, and hospitality are all down. But there's some good things going on. Education and health services added 50,000 positions, leading the way headed into the new year. Now, construction added 30,000 jobs. Trade, transportation, and utilities contributed 28,000 jobs, and other services added about 20,000 jobs. Now, the report is not all doom and gloom because large businesses added about 120,000 jobs. Now, the Street has one report published December 3rd explaining how Cargill, the largest private employer in the country, has announced it will lay off about 5% of its workforce. Now, the report goes on to point out what got the story in, and that is the fact that the new data shows that there were 7.74 million job openings on the last day of October, folks. This story proves that something strange is occurring in the field of economics and the job market, folks. Sort of rate big headline around this time of year and about this time in history, period. Sort of rate big headline. Well, folks, are the top 8 local and international headlines and developing news stories that I made this week. I hope you got something out of today's program. I always get something out doing the research. As usual, I thank all the news outlets, the journalists, the people on the front lines. Folks, you deserve all the credit. I'm just the mediator, the man in the middle, navigating your stories just to keep people informed. If you want to show us some support here at Method 8, carry out this lovely mission here, all you have to do is visit the website on the screen, buy something, click on something, watch something, read something, or to sponsor a program, or you can stop at the store at 5648 Market Street in Boardman, Ohio, or Youngstown, whatever one you want to use, and see my smiling face and buy something in the store. Well, folks, I am out of here. I'll be back next week, look through over 200 or more stories, Lord willing, just to keep you informed with the grace headed into this holy, lovely holiday season. Now we're in it, and we're living it. Well, folks, I am out of here. I'll be back next week just for you, looking through over 200 or more stories once again to keep you informed. Have a good week, everybody. Thank you for tuning to the Mediator. Me, Brian West. Peace.
If you need help, then dial your operator.
Have no fear, fellow citizens. The Mediator is here.